Hello, hello. Come down and let's jump onto our mats to begin our next part of our practice. So grab a hold of your manual, and if you have one, the following props are going to be really useful here. So you can grab a hold of a bolster if you've got one. So a standard yoga bolster is wonderful. If not, a blanket and pillow are fantastic props that we can use at home to create the most authentic yoga kind of experience that you can have. So finding yourself in a nice quiet space, grab a hold of your beginner's manual and we'll turn to the section on yin yoga, probably one of the most popular forms of yoga and something that's really gaining a continued following in our studio but also around the world. Yin yoga works with the connective tissues of the body. So when we come into a traditional hatha yoga practice, when we flow, when we come into dynamic movement, we're working a lot with the muscles, and the fascial sheathing around the muscles is certainly getting the opportunity to stretch. But yin yoga is not about the muscles, it's about the 4 different layers of connective tissue, or the 4 different types of connective tissue that we have in the body when we talk about fascia. So we have a subcutaneous layer, and that's the layer that's underneath your skin. To understand how it affects movement, if you grab a hold of your shirt, this works a little bit better if you're wearing a t-shirt, and just have your hand down there and have it really loose and just resting. You can move your hand really freely in all directions. But if you grab a hold and you squeeze and pull down, now you'll feel restriction when you try and take your arm in different directions. And that's because much longer than the lines of our muscles, our fascial tissue is in great big sheaths, great big long planes almost, that are much more than just like our bicep or our psoas. So we work with a much broader span of the body, and we work with concepts of plasticity, which is different to elasticity. So you think of an elastic band, you pull it and it snaps back into place, and our muscles are very much like that. When we come into a hatha program, we'll flow through and the muscles will lengthen and shorten, and we're kind of coming into that contraction. When we come into yin yoga, because we're working with this incredibly dense fibrous tissue, what we do is take a really long hold, and we're working with the fibers expanding, and we're working into plasticity. So were you to grab a plastic bag and just gently take your fingers onto the plastic bag, if you tried to pull really quickly, the bag would snap. It might break or rip, so you can think about ripping a plastic bag. But if you were to subtly and slowly apply pressure and just draw the edges of the plastic bag away, you'd see that the fibers in the bag would just begin to slowly lengthen and create space in between them. But what happens, unlike an elastic band that snaps back into place each time, is that these fibers in your plastic bag stay out, and that's plasticity. And we create and keep the space. However, because we are dynamic in nature, what happens is we'll both mend our body with that little bit of space, but when we get stressed, or when we've been doing a lot of activity, or if we become sick, we tend to get the fascia tightened back up again. So these practices of creating space and then rebalancing just some of the different elements that life brings in are incredibly nourishing. They help so much with back pain. If you're not already seated up onto a prop, I'll invite you to come up onto a prop. And we can do some of the yoga poses that you'll see in a traditional yin class, in a traditional hatha class in our yin practice. So we'll work through all the different content in the manual, but we'll do it while we're taking some of the poses, because the poses are long held. I'm going to start you in Baddha Konasana because it's a really beautiful way to begin the practice. So the soles of the feet together. Now, some people have really tight inner thighs, so when they bring the soles of the feet together in here, they find that their knees are up, and they're just not going to be able to hold that for a long period of time. They'll feel the strain in the back. So if you slide the feet out into a much longer stance, because we're going to come down, we're going to allow the spine into flexion, which is different to what you would traditionally do. You might want to so you've got your hips propped up, and you can even turn your blanket into a long sausage. I love the use of props. This is a little bit more restorative yoga. And and you can kind of tie your feet together and then bring your hands down, and then you can let your head rest in this diamond shape through your legs. Now I'm going to add the timer, because one of the elements that we'll talk about in our practice is time, and time is a very big part of yin practice. So we need to add a long period of time to work with the plasticity of the tissues. I'm just going to soften down here and just relax. Maybe even let the eyes close, and we'll hold for much longer than you traditionally would. So time is an incredibly powerful tool in so many different ways, in mending our hearts sometimes when they break, or in growing anything. It takes time. And here in our practice, when we work with our body in these yin poses, time is one of the essential ingredients to the recipe that creates really lasting change. So prepare yourself to be here for a while. Maybe drop down a little bit. And then we'll work with the next part of the elements of yin yoga, and that is playing the edge. So the edge is the point where you feel something happening. It's the tipping point. In yoga, and particularly in yin yoga, it's common to be in discomfort, but discomfort is a very different reality to pain. So we don't want to be in pain. We want to be in a place where we can feel that change is happening. There is certainly an awareness of sensation in the body, but there is no difficulty maintaining. We can stay here. There's no electrical current to sensation. Rather, it's just an awareness that things are shifting from one place to another. That is the element of change. And the edge, when we play the edge in yin yoga, sometimes the edge recedes and we have to move into it and take the pose deeper. And that's one of the few times that we break another of the tenets of yin yoga, which is stillness. Sometimes the edge comes forward like a rising wave, and we need to come back a little bit. But what we learn in yin yoga is this beautiful ability to find the edge and not crash through it. So in yin yoga, we move right to the point of change, instead of trying to effort our way through and barrel in, which is what we often do in life. Or instead of shrinking away and moving back into the comfort zone, we just stay at the threshold. And moment by moment, in this place of awareness and peace, we create the recipe for change. Let's drop down a little bit more. Watch your breath. In the moments where I'm not talking in yin, it's the breath that's going to be your savior. So just allow it to keep you company. And sometimes I'll talk to distract you, and sometimes we simply sit with and notice what arises. When you're ready, we'll slowly come out, and you might be becoming aware of something called the rebound effect. So as the body comes back into its original shape, it's not uncommon in yin yoga to move very like you're an old person, very slowly and stiffly. That's okay, it's how you know it's working. So don't be afraid of that sensation. The body will bounce back, just like if you go to the gym and you work your muscles out, they're tired and fatigued. This is work, it's just work in a different way than how we've traditionally perhaps perceived it. Okay, so I'm going to move that proper way, and we're going to come into the Dragon series. So the Dragon series, and you'll see this right here. The Dragon series is very much like our low lunges that we'd see in yoga, but I love Dragon series because it is a beautiful stretch out for the back. So So I'll take you to the side just for a moment so we can show you the setup. So it's like a low lunge. I'm going to take high dragon. Now you can move that back knee. Most people can move that back knee much further or more away than they think they can. So we'll take the back knee back. This will be our high flying dragon. And then we'll come down into our low dragon. Bring both the hands inside. I'll just pop the other leg out so you can see. This is going to be our low flying dragon, and then our winged dragon, where we open up the wing by rolling to the outside of the foot. So these are the 3 variations of the dragon that we'll do here. You might want a prop for underneath your knee, particularly if you get any pain in your patella. The other option is to put it underneath the shin so the knee bone is free. And these are all in your manual. So you'll see them right here. We've got the different variations of the dragon. So I'm going to bring the back shin on, and I'm going to step that right foot forward. Beautiful. And then I'm going to slowly press up. Slowly press it up. And I'm going to put the timer on. And we're going to be here. Now, option to bring the hands up and just align your shoulders, and then melt the back thigh down, center into the heel, notice the head, relax the shoulders, and then find yourself balanced on the earth. Other option is to bring the hands down to the floor, but because we're going to do that for the next 2, I invite you to see, can you be in this moment? I'm just going to stop that flipping over. Can you be in this moment, just in breath with the body upright? If it's too much, come out, because sometimes when that edge comes in towards us, we need to, for the wisdom of our bodies, come out in that moment. But if you can stay with it, then be here. Breathe and allow it all to happen. Beautiful. Slow breath in and slow breath out. Just keep melting down that back thigh. And we'll talk about stillness. So often I refer to the mountain lake reflecting the moon. Like a pond, our mind often has ripples upon it. We call them chitta vritti, the fluctuations of the mind. And these are our thoughts. When the pond has an opportunity to settle, though, it can reflect the light of the moon with clarity. It comes into an accurate representation of reality. Our mind is like that. So in this practice, as we still the body and we sit, just letting the flow of breath be the calming essence, moment to moment, the mind often begins to still too. And the body needs that stillness to work on the connective tissue. Alright, we'll bring the hand down because we're working with that fascial tissue, and just separate the foot out to the side. So now you can bring right to the edge of your yoga mat, so there's more span between your hips. Beautiful. And some people might like to be, if you've got any problems for your wrists, on your fists here, as you draw your belly in, elongate out through that spine, and center down through the heel. Some people can come down into their forearms, but that's certainly not everyone's experience of the pose. I'm going to do that a little bit later on. From here though, the knee's still coming in. It'll come out when we come to the winged variation. An option, you can come up onto props. You can have a prop so you can bring the forearms down. So this is where the bolster is really handy. And then you're just going to breathe. Notice the neck, and notice if you're tensing and tightening anywhere in the body. And can you be a little bit looser and freer? Yeah, just be with what's happening. Beautiful. Allowing time to slowly pass and feel your mind like that mountain pond, all those ripples begin to still. This is our low flying dragon. Try not to grip or hold, and try not to be tense. We don't want to engage the muscles here. It's going to take the work away from the connective tissue. You just have to wait and allow it to happen. See what I mean by the element of time? And we've got the edge and we've got stillness. So they're the major tenets that we work with in yin yoga. But they can be challenging, and this can be a practice that really brings up some emotions. All right, just turn your toes out to the side. So I'm going to grab a hold of the bolster here and just give you the little variation. I'll hop back a little bit so I'm still in the frame. So from here, we're going to turn the toe out to the side and wing the knee out. And if you do have pillows, you can prop up as many as you need. Bring them out in front. And then drop it down. And just keep that knee flapping out. You might even want to flap the wing of your dragon a few times. You'll feel how that really begins to activate into the back hip while still keeping that wide open span. I find this beautiful for the muscles of the back, and if you're like me and if you're like many people, there's tensioning in the back. So restrictions in my body and patterns of movement and the things that I like to do often build up tension in the hips. But even as activity builds up tension in hips, inactivity also builds up tension in the hips. So if you're someone that has a job where you're seated a lot, then it's really common for the hip flexors to be tight. So yin yoga is really beneficial for people that work in offices or people that have a seated job that have to spend a lot of their days seated, because the positioning of our body in a seat is not really our most beneficial. In some countries, they squat a lot rather than be in a seat, and that's very good for opening up the hips, but it's also very difficult to maintain for long periods of time. I don't know that I could get my work done. I had one yoga teacher recommend folding your laundry while being in a malasana, a yogi squat, but yeah. Somehow I seem to always forget to do that when I'm folding a laundry. And the practice is being with it. When we come onto the other side, we'll begin to talk about another really essential component to yin yoga, which is the meridians. So yin yoga works along the meridians that you will see in traditional Chinese medicine. You'll see them in things like acupuncture and acupressure. And these postures work within those subtle energy channels. And you can have whole yin classes based around stimulating the organs, stimulating the chi, and understanding the balance between the energy in the body and the physical positions that we put the body in, and how that has a profound effect physiologically and psychologically on the condition of how we experience day-to-day living. So bring yourself in and prepare yourself for that rebound effect. This is usually where I feel like my legs are never going to go back together again. But give it a little moment, and you might want to take a few cat-cows here. Downward facing dog, even though it's a more yang pose, is often really nourishing. Often I'm not feeling particularly energetic, so I take a little child's pose and just let the body sink back. Any resting position, you can wiggle the hips and stir out the energy, or you might simply want to sit still and just appreciate the rebound effect and what it feels like in your body before we come into that second side. And then when you're ready, we'll roll it forward and we'll set up for the second set of dragons. I know you're excited. So having that prop there for the back knee, and we'll start with our high flying dragon. So remembering that back knee can often be a lot further back than most people realize. Take a bit of space, slowly press yourself up. Center down through the heel. Just make sure that your knee's not coming over your ankle here, and you want your feet the span of your hips. All right, and then settle in. Just make sure the shoulders are soft though, and notice if you're grimacing. So if you're setting the face into a tense position, it's not going to really promote the conditions for relaxation that we want to bring to our practice. Can you let the breath slow, and as we feel, we work with the yin side of the breath, which is the exhale. As we feel those exhales lengthening, there is a sense of ease and effortlessness that begins to permeate the physical structures of the body. And sometimes sighing out, having an audible exhalation, can assist that process of connecting with the out breath. And so stillness now. It's always hard not to fidget. I find it such beautiful training because energetic little dynamic youngsters like me like to move. So to have to sit with and breathe and be in the moment can be a practice that is brilliant for training the body for meditative and concentrative arts, as much as working with the physical body to train it to just stretch and create space. Work with that exhale. Try not to engage the muscles. Let the connective tissue take the strain. And be with whatever arises. Again, sometimes emotions come up and they're just stored in the body. Whenever we feel tense, we literally tense. That's why we say I'm feeling tense today. It's a physical as well as a psychological reality. All right, let's come down into our low flying dragon. So open the foot out to the side, about the span of the mat, so you've got your hips in a more open shape. You can have those little forearms propped. You can take that back knee back if there's space becoming available in the hips. You can have several pillows piled up. The toes are still facing forward in on this one. And we're just going to work. So meridians, the energy pathways of the body. And there are many meridians, so depending on which school of thought you follow, there are, I like to think of 12, or there's sometimes considered 16 major energy pathways in the body. Some, though, talk about many, many more meridians, but there are some major ones. Many of them start down in the big toe, so things like kidney and spleen and stomach start down in the big toe. They all work on long lines, just like the connective tissue do. So they'll start in one part of the body and then they'll travel up. So you've got like your liver one traveling up the inner seam of your leg, up the inner thigh. And when we take these postures, we stimulate the energy, and we just unblock it from anywhere it's become stuck. I find that choosing a practice based around discomfort in particular parts of my body does have a very profound effect. So for people that suffer stomach complaints, working with your stomach and your kidney meridians can be really powerful. Kidney meridians are great to work with if you've got a bit of adrenal fatigue, because the kidneys and the adrenals, because of their placement in the body, are so intimately connected. So we can use these long held poses to begin to counteract things like stress or overdoing. And if you come into a yin class, you might find that it has a physical element. We won't be working through a particular part of the body, or we might be working with those energy lines. So I'm going to come out just for a moment and grab a hold of the bolster, come down to the forearms for our final winged dragon. Option is to have the forearms to the floor, but you want a bit of space so the spine can be long here. Turn the toes out, just make sure that the knee and the ankle and the toe are working on that same line, and you don't have like just feet going and legs going in all different directions. That bit's really important. Spend a little moment and check in, and then make sure that there's no gripping or holding in your body. Somewhere where you can be still, somewhere where you can breathe, and just allow, like deep, also like rain, like those slow rainfalls for an extended period of time. Our yin practice is like that. It gets deep. It sinks down into the soil. These stretches do the same thing to create lasting change, to really nourish the body. And physiologically, we have cells in our body called fibroblasts that are part of the connective tissue. So this stimulates them. They release molecules that attract water. It's how we help rehydrate our connective tissue when we put these long-held, slow and gentle strains on the body through the postures. So you're effectively hydrating your skin, or actually the space underneath your skin, that subcutaneous level. But we have a subcutaneous level of connective tissue, but we even have visceral connective tissue that's wrapping around those organs, which is why yin yoga can work with the organs themselves. In traditional Chinese medicine, the organs are considered to have different properties beyond just physiological functions. They're associated with different energies and different outcomes. Learn more about those in a yin class that you might do with us at the studio, or maybe you're doing a premium one and you're joining us via Zoom. Beautiful. Just feel that long soaking rain coming down deep into the soil of your body. We're almost done. Are you ready? Because this bit feels amazing. Bring the hands in. Ooh. Take the leg all the way back, and we'll come into any little motion. A few little shark swims always feels nice here. So looking over the sides of the body, swim, swim, swim it out. Feels pretty good, right? And we'll come into a child's pose. So a couple of different options for the child's pose. And again, I'll take it to the side just so you can see with the bolster. So you can have the toes touching. You can bring the bolster in and then lay the belly down on it. Take the elbows wide. This will bring an element of back bend in. Just rest one ear, let the shoulders slide down the back, and that can be really lovely. Although what I'm going to do today is bring the knees together, because I'm working into the muscles of the spine, doing lots of cycling lately. So I've got tension in the back. This pose will help release out those muscles around the spine. A couple of different options for the hands. If you find the hips and the heels aren't coming together, you can grab a hold, like a rolled up blanket, and bridge the gap. It also feels really nice. Or you can take a rolled up blanket. Of course, once you're in it, you're going to pause, and you can prop that underneath the feet. So I want to bring my feet onto it to get a little stretch into the reticulum, just near the top of the ankles. And then you can bring the elbows out. There's another option through the hands, and let the head sink down. Or you can head the hands forward. You can have the hands around and back into an embryo pose. So you're going to find something, and you're going to stay there and sink in. If you do have your head to one side, if you're taking that first variation, just turn your neck now so you're getting an equal balance across both sides of the neck. We'll bring the hands down. We'll gently press the body up. And then from here, maybe a few cat-cows, round through the spine, tuck the chin to the chest, drop the belly down, lift the tail, heart opens, and a few in between those two. And then just shake and free everything up. And let's come into our next pose. We're going to come down into Sphinx pose. And to do that, we'll bring the elbows out in front. So you might want to grab a prop for this one. We're going to bring a curve into the spine. I'll pop around just this way for the moment to set it up and show you what's going to happen with the body. So we'll come all the way down, hip bones melt into the floor. If you're pregnant or there's a reason why you can't bring tension or place pressure on your belly, pop a bolster or a pillow underneath the hip so there's that little bit of spaciousness and there's no pressure down. And then we can scooch that in and maybe just come across opposite elbows here. And we're just going to let the toes, you can have them out to the side, you can have them in. I'll give you a couple of other options here. And then I quite like to have the head lifted. So often when I teach this in class, I've got people to lift their head up to strengthen the muscles of the neck, because we spend a lot of our days doing this. So having the head up is really good for strengthening those muscles of the neck. Think of a baby. When a baby is first learning to crawl, it needs to strengthen the muscles of the neck. The neck is this heavy bowling ball that they kind of perch on that little toothpick of a neck. I'm going to turn it around now. I just want you to see the curve in the spine and see how this travels compression down into the low back, which is the place where the majority of people begin to experience osteoporosis. It's such a common experience, particularly in women. It's about twice as likely to affect women as men. So yin yoga is really good at targeting the places that often have that buildup of osteoporosis. We have a lot of people in the studio that come to practice with us that are older, and it can be really beneficial for that. The other option is to bring your feet up. This is going to intensify that compression. So you can have your hands here. That's another thing for lifting your chin. So you can have your knees as wide as the mat and your toes coming in. You can have your knees and your hips in a singular line with the feet curling in. You don't have to go there. Your other option is to take crocodile pose, or just come down on the floor, make your hands into a shape of a diamond, just let one ear rest down. That's still going to be a back bend. It's still going to open up your chest, but it's not going to have that same loading on the back. And particularly I found therapists, like massage therapists, potentially can have difficulty with this, or people that are folding forward a lot, or that are carrying a lot of tension through those muscles parallel to the spine. That this pose can be one that they really have to build up and consistently visit, because just the positioning and the curvature of their body regularly in their everyday life is so forward that this gentle held back bend can be a lot to ask. So you're going to take it at your own pace. I'll quickly show you what crocodile pose looks like to the other side, just so you can see, and I'll show you the release out. You can stay where you are, and then in a moment we'll release it out. And usually we might do a few rounds of that in yin yoga. It's probably the most common of the back bends that we visit. We also sometimes do Anahata Tasana. Alright, so here, crocodile pose looks like the hands out nice and wide. We just bring the ear down to the floor, and with the span of the elbows out, you can rest the head on your hands and open up across your collarbones. Everybody come down into this pose now. If you've got your head turned towards the right, what I want you to do is just open your right knee out to the side and then melt down the hip points, and notice how that decompresses the back now. So this is a really nice active recovery. Active being an interesting choice of verb here, or interesting noun choice. and then swing it all the way back. Just turn your head over to the other side. So we won't go into seal pose, but there is a variation called seal that brings a little bit more into it. I'm pretty sure that we've already visited seal through other parts of our course. Come all the way back. Hands come in, gently press yourself up. Beautiful work. And we're prepared to take our proud swan pose. So again, I'll do this one to the side. I'm just going to bring the right knee forward, turn the heel out and extend that left leg out to the side. So you can see that my spine is still in that back bend shape, and then you might want to grab a hold of a prop and place it underneath your hip here. Let the hands walk in. Now you might be down here. This might be enough of a curvature into your spine. And your other option is to be in something called deer pose. So you might have that other leg out to the side in a 90-degree bend. You're still facing forward, but that's less intense. Over time, there'll be the traveling of that back leg towards the back, and then that elevation of the spine up this way. Yeah, beautiful. And the more the hands come in towards the shoulders, the deeper the stretch is. So we won't hold this one for anywhere near as long. Oop. I'm just setting up our timer here. And we're going to be here for a little bit. Your final option is to reach the hands behind and reach the knuckles down for the floor. But that can be quite yang in that there can be that work into the muscles of the back, or you're really working through the chest. So that might not be your choice today. We don't want to lose the work for the connective tissue. So if it's a real strain and you can't breathe being here, I'm going to recommend that this isn't your variation of the pose. All right, let's just stay with it. I'm just going to show you all of these on one side. So if I'm not looking at you, I'm just trying to direct the head in the right position. And then don't worry, I'll flip back to the front in a moment once we've got the shape of the body. So as you walk that back leg in, you're trying to really ground down through the inner tip of the back knee. This is proud swan. We call it pigeon pose in a hatha practice. And I had one beautiful teacher that used to talk about fluffing up the feathers of the pigeon, and I've never forgotten that. It's the best description I've ever thought for the positioning of the chest in this pose. And then we're going to come down and we're going to hang out in a very popular stretch, and one that everyone always smiles when we come to in our classes, which is our sleeping swan. So you might be down the forearms here, you might have the bolster, or you can have the body all the way out, and we're going to drop it down. Now in a yang class, we might be looking to get that front leg almost out to 90 degrees. I'm not going to take that here today or recommend that for today's practice. And the reasoning behind that is in a yin class, because we hold the poses for longer, there's often a little bit more subtlety. We don't move as deep. We ask less, but we gain more. A very interesting concept for many of us in today's society to not strive to sit at the edge and not try and barrel forward. It's a good practicing. Yin energy is associated with nighttime feminine softer energy, and this is what we embody. It really asks from us an attitude of patience and compassion, and we blend that through seamlessly, breath by breath, by this gentle art of relaxing into the postures, letting them slowly take shape in the body. Now we could spend quite some time down here, but because we're going to work with both sides of the body, and we're working with a few extra poses than we'd usually have in a traditional class. We'll come into the second side. So the hands come in. I find the easiest way to exit is to hop the back knee in, and then maybe shark swims or windscreen, wipe out your legs side to side, can feel nice. Or you can bring the legs in front and windscreen wipe them out. And then we'll set up for the second side. So I'm going to slide that left knee forward and hop the right leg back. Remember, there's always the option as I bring the heel, I'm not sitting on the heel's aligning with that right hip bone. As I take it back, I'm just going to move a little prop out of the way. As I take it back, I might need to have my knee to the side, but I still want to direct myself forward so I'm getting the opening in the hip. And then many people have difficulty grounding into that left hip, where having a prop is really beneficial for this part, because we can bring it and we can ground the hip down towards the floor, and then we can be upright in the position. And we don't feel like we're going to roll over to the side, which is a really common experience, that people kind of list to the side like they're in a boat about to capsize. That's not ideal. It's not really where we want to be. So if you can be upright with that proud open heart, beautiful. Navel. It's just soft or gently engaged, depends what your back needs. Remember, you have the option of the hands coming behind. I like to think of Titanic here. I'm flying, Jack. Maybe not. That's my sense of humor. And we're just going to be in each moment, breath by breath, being with the experience. So again, once you're in the pose, it's simply allowing it to be without fighting, without being in resistance, and without crashing through the edge. So try and give up the need to over effort. And it's a struggle for youngsters to just relax and chill out here, to simply be in the essence of the practice. We'll bring the hands down and we'll begin to stretch the body into that elongated shape. So this is really beautiful release out for the psoas. It's also nice for the outer hip abductors. And we're going to just relax down. So I'll stay on the forearms for this one as we settle into a very relaxing pose. Again, you might want to, I sometimes recommend to people that they give themselves a little face massage. You can have a little cupped hands, or just to relax the neck, bring the hands, just gently palpate the forehead by spreading across from the mid line of your forehead out to the edges. Just smooth out the brow and get rid of any wrinkles. A little facial massage is always lovely, and it will help soothe away the worries of the week. Beautiful. When you're ready, I'll slowly peel it up. So I'll show you the other release that you might want to take, and that is to bring the feet in front, legs out nice and wide, and just windscreen wipe the knees. So a variation that you can do of pigeon pose, if that pose doesn't work for you, and it's a common one we give for people that are very tight, or people that just can't be on their knee if there's some kind of injury, is to do, we can have a seated pigeon pose here, which is a 90-degree angle. You want to keep flexion in your foot though, or you can come all the way down to the floor, bring the knee into the chest and be here. That's another option as well. And then we just breathe and we experience moment to moment what's happening in the body, and it's really lovely. Fantastic. Bring the feet down. Just going to roll over to the side as we come up into the next part. So, where have we worked today? We've worked through Winged dragon, we're going to come into wind relieving. We've worked through our sleeping swan, all the different dragon poses. So coming into, and we worked through child's pose, come down into this final variation before we take our Shavasana. So we'll take this to the side for a moment. And this is often one that we don't hold for too long in yin. Having a pillow to prop underneath those knees is going to be really lovely for the final part. Come down, come down, come down. Oh, I'm going to scooch to the side. Lay yourself on the floor. And then draw your right knee into your chest. Lace your fingers onto your shin. Let your shoulders broaden here. Tuck your chin in, and you might want to have that left foot on the floor, and you might want to extend it all the way out. As you exhale, begin to press the knee in towards the chest. We don't want to work too hard though. So once you're in the position, I want you to think of just the shape of the body and the weight of the bones being enough to let the body relax. And really important, and this is a good way to know whether or not you should have that bottom leg extended or bent, is to reach down your awareness, collect it into the space around the back of your hips, into those muscles either side of the spine. And if they're tensing, then what I want you to do is rebend that knee, because you don't want them to be tense. And that's it. You're in the pose. And you're just going to be with your experience. Beautiful. Just relax everything. Hang 10 here. And closing down the eyes. And this is the part of the class that I generally become quieter and quieter, because it's an invitation into that meditative and quiet space that will become our Shavasana. You can ground that right leg down, gather the left knee into your chest. You might want to lift up your hips for a moment, reposition them, and take the knee in, lace the fingers onto the shin, and extend the other leg out. Beautiful. Now, in a traditional yin class, I would have more twists, but because we covered twists in other parts of the program, we have a whole part of the program that is dedicated to core work and twisting the spine, and you can add a twist in if you need to later on. We're really preparing now to come into that final Shavasana. That will be the ending part of the practice. Hopefully you can feel the energy of the earth grounding you. So many of the postures that we take in a yin class are down on the floor. Whenever we get down on the floor, it is very, very restive for the mind. Bring the foot down. Maybe you want to take a quick little windscreen wipe of those knees side to side and just release out through the hips. Sometimes we'll take inversions in our class, but we're not going to go there tonight. And then we are going to grab a hold of something to prop underneath the knees, scooch it in, scooch it in. And this is the good part, Shavasana. It doesn't matter what type of yoga you are doing, Shavasana is our end point. And because the practice of yoga was one that was very much derived around allowing the mind and the body to prepare for meditation, it's no wonder that the final destination of every practice is to move you into this space, mind and body. So letting the exchange of the breath in and out be the balancing force into the elements of your own nature, the yin and the yang. Just allowing the body to soften and fall to the earth. Just allowing the collarbones to be broad. Maybe letting a little smile play across those lips. And this is where I'll sing you out tonight, because you want to stay here as long as your body requires the rest. Yin yoga is a stress to the physical body, because we've created separation and space. You think about the plastic bag, when you pull it, it weakens. Now again, because our body is dynamic in nature, we'll knit back together and we'll grow stronger, unlike that plastic bag, but with more space in our tissues. But you're not going to want to jump up quickly. Know that after your practice, if you're feeling that sense of fatigue, that is not illusionary, that you have done work. It's just a different variation of work than perhaps you're used to associating with your practice. So try not to jump up and run 10 kilometers. You're actually going to feel that your body will be limited in its ability to do that. Yin is the restive energy, so that's what you need to do here. Take a deep breath in and an even bigger breath out, and settle in to relax for as long as you have that time available. Thank you all for sharing your yin practice with us tonight. I hope you enjoyed this beautiful restorative opportunity to work mind and body together, and I will see you for some practice very soon. Namaste.